does not need an all-knowing savior or ruler for that particular matter. The country needs a hard-working, honest, consensus builder or leader to mobilize the country and create a level of trust in the people of Kenya to invest their energy and their focus in moving a country to the next level. And I would like to make that contribution.
I believe that there must come a time in the life of a country when nothing matters but the country. Nothing matters but the stability of the country. Nothing matters but the stability and the satisfaction of the people of that particular country. And for Kenya, for us now.
Kenyans, today I want us to talk about Dr. Fred Okengo Matiang'i. We know that Kenya's political ground is shaking because his name has now suddenly emerged and returned to the political frontline. The former Super CS is back. Fred Okengo Matiang'i is back, and not just in words, but this time with action. And in the recent move, we have seen him actually trying to go around, trying to make new connections with people. And this has to worry President Ruto. President Ruto should be a very worried man because Matiang'i is back. Fred Matiang'i served as one of the most powerful cabinet secretaries under President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy, Ruto. And we all remember that during that time, even Ruto was worried because Matiang'i acted as the second most powerful person after President Uhuru Kenyatta. And we know this is where all the rivalry between Matiang'i and Ruto began. But anyway, before we even go into that, we know that Matiang'i was a reformist, from education reforms to more of him affirming the grip of internal security. And when he was also the Minister of ICT, he gained a reputation for being a no-nonsense and result-driven. I mean, if you've forgotten, let me just show you this.
Now, kusema ukweli now we are not serious really about this. Where is the teacher? Director?
For this class?
Yeah. Where is he?
He is in the staff room.
In the staff room? And the students are here to be taught? This is standard 7, isn't it? We are preparing them to sit for exam next year. This is the first lesson, the very first lesson of the day. And the teacher is not there. Unaona hiyo makosa tunafanya kama wazazi na walimu. Kazi yetu sasa inaharibika hivi.
The teacher?
Right. Thank you very much.
That's the room.
So that is where the 60,000 went.
Yes.
You never get to have a practical and realistic feel of what we are dealing with. And there's no way we can move forward if we are not paying attention to if we're not paying attention to the details of what is happening in our schools. So I came here, the County Director of Education, Kadir, is here, Rubut, the TSC Director of Education is here, the DC Tukonaya Wakisauni. So I wanted to see for myself, an example of schools. And I want to see a few others before I go back to Nairobi. One, we have very low levels of accountability on the resources we are giving out for free education. You have seen for yourself here. In the last 3 years, forget about any other monies. On infrastructure and maintenance alone, this school has received 240,000. My brother here, the head teacher, is telling me about a manhole and a teacher's toilet. In 2014, 60,000 was given to help him prepare a computer lab. You have heard the story for yourself, we were together, and the things that he's saying. There's some work to do. That's what I'm seeing here. There's some work to do, and I fear that this could be replicated in some other schools across the country. My colleagues and I at the Ministry.
Now you're going to take.
My colleagues and I at the Ministry of Education are going to do this throughout the year. We will never have an accurate feel of what is going on in the country if we spend all our time in Jogo House. And then we cannot see the reforms that we want to see if we are spending all our time in Jogo House. So I'm going to walk around, drive around, spend time in schools such as I've done this morning to be able to see exactly what is going on in schools. And you can see the first class we went to this morning, the teacher had not arrived, and the students were on their own. And this is what I'm talking about when we are complaining about teacher absenteeism.
Well, that is just an iceberg because we know there were so many such moments of Matiang'i. And things used to work. I mean, he used to make things work, whether you like it or not. And you were so strict on that. But today, that won't be even my focus. Today, I want us to focus on Matiang'i's recent remarks and recent activities since he resigned from the World Bank position. I mean, in recent week, Matiang'i has been hitting the ground, meeting grassroots leaders, appearing at strategic events, and making bold statements that are clearly targeted at the Kenya Kwanza regime. He's calling out the government for their failure to lower the cost of living, for their failure to listen to the people, for their failures in all the dramas that we are experiencing in the country, for their failures in betraying the promise they made to Kenyans. We all know that there's a lot happening in Kenya right now, and everyone has something to say. So Matiang'i is not actually an exemption, but I just want to share with you some of the key remarks that he has made recently.
Okay, it's very difficult to do anything when the country is in the situation in which it is right now. And I have been observing what has been going on in the country since morning. Like many of us who are interested in what's happening in the country. And quite frankly, it's very painful and very unfortunate to see, what is going on in the country, because I don't think there's someone around who thinks we should be living like this every day. And our young people getting out, expressing themselves, and the level of violence that we have seen, the level of destruction in the country is unbearable. And we cannot pretend that there are no issues. And this has nothing to do with politics. Whatever side of the political divide you belong to, these issues need to be addressed. I keep asking this question: how many lives are we going to lose before we start listening and reasoning with each other? Because what is being asked here really is attention, and then to ensure that we work in an inclusive manner to address the challenges that we face. And we cannot pretend that the challenges don't exist, and then we live as if those who are raising questions, or those who are on the streets, like our young active Kenyans, are just doing it for any other reasons except trying to address the real issues that they deal with on a day-to-day basis. So for me and many of us, really, it's a very, very sad day and very painful. If we were a little more open and more focused in addressing some of these issues, we should not have gotten here this year. Because when this happened last year, there are promises that were made that were never fulfilled. Personally, I've been thinking, actually, and maybe I'll speak about this some more when I get out and start having conversations with people. We needed an open public inquiry on some of these things, and on all things that are being raised, whether it's about unaccounted for deaths and so on. We need an open public inquiry on these matters so that issues can be resolved and can be addressed effectively and conclusively. We cannot go on like this, because the question you ask yourself every day is, how many more lives are we going to lose before we start listening and reasoning with each other? And what else needs to happen before we get to a point where we forget about whether it's politics or whatever the issues are, and focus really on the questions that we are being asked at this particular time? Why must it be that when people ask questions, they are met with either a different attitude, or they are met with violence and so on and so forth? Yet they are basically asking questions, and they're not saying things that are alien to us. They're saying that things that we know and we ought to relate to in an effective manner. So my view is, I've observed this for the bit that I could, and listened very carefully, tried to spend most of the time glued to screens, to YouTube, looking at what was going on. I mean, I've literally spent my day on this particular, and it's because the Gen Z said it's going to be their day. They don't need politicians on the streets and so on. So we have been glued, observing what was happening today. You can hardly do anything. There's nothing you can do when the country is in a situation where it is. We are all on tenterhooks. We don't know what is going to happen, and the level of destruction and violence we have seen across the country. Honestly, what is it going to take for us to listen? for our leaders to get to a point where they say, let us listen and reason with each other. And yet, you see, if this is not conclusively and properly addressed, this round is not going to come to an end. We are going to continue dealing with each other in this kind of manner, all the time. I believe that there must come a time in the life of our country when nothing matters but the country. Nothing matters but the stability of the country. Nothing matters but the stability and the satisfaction of the people of that particular country. And for Kenya, for us now, that is the time. Let's for once focus on the issues that these young Kenyans are raising. I mean, approximately, when you look at the statistics, probably about 7 out of 10 Kenyans you talk to are between the age 0 and 35. Now, the 3 out of 7 who are 35 and above, we cannot fail to listen to the bulk of our population and focus on the welfare and the interests of the bulk of our population. And the questions they're asking are not about things that are alien, they're about things that are with us. So let's forget about many of these things and focus on the solutions that we need to deal with to the challenges we have. These questions they've asked about inclusion, the questions they've asked about what needs to be done in employment, how to handle education, because most of these frustrations, it's true, as some parent was telling me, some of our children are genuinely traumatized. If you have been in university for 2 years or 3 years, you cannot do an exam because you don't have money and so on. What do we expect them to do? If you have been in school, you are facing a stage exam and you need to move to the next level. Now you don't know whether capitation has come or not. You don't know what is going to be done. What is expected of us? Most of our young people are genuinely traumatized, and this is the result of that. So we can't pretend that all is fine and dandy, and therefore we shouldn't even be raising this issue in the first place, or we start ascribing them to other things, or it's politics, it's so and so. This is why I always say, let us not spend time criticizing, pointing fingers and hurling insults. Let's focus on the issues that we have at hand. That's what we need to do.
62 years after independence, we should not live like this, where, you would rather do other things in your life than spend time on this. Therefore, as we condole with the families that lost their loved ones, and as we congratulate our young people for expressing themselves and coming out to ask questions about their lives and their future, it is very necessary that as a country we ask the question, how can we avoid this? The only way of doing this is being true to ourselves and being true to our responsibilities and to our mandates and doing the right thing for our country. In fact, I have asked my colleagues in the opposition, and I want to say it here today, that we shouldn't confine the information that is coming and the investigations to 2023, 2024 and 2025. Let's go back and have an open public inquest on everything that has happened before, because sometimes things happen, and when it's an opportune time, public inquest, so that everybody, because all of us, the Honorable Wamalwa and myself have served before on the National Security Council. We need to go before a magistrate or a judge in an open public inquest and put the facts we have there and put the information we have, and other role players also put the information they have. Because if we want to move forward, I don't think we have a future in this country without truthfulness and without focusing on what we need to do for our people. Because this cutting of corners, sometimes when something happens, we always employ politics, blame others and so on and so forth. And then tomorrow, we behave as if nothing happened. And then next year will come, we'll have another situation like this. Let's be open and transparent. Let's all go forward. And I want to ask all my colleagues, because we can't ask accountability of others when we are not accountable ourselves. Let us go and explain some of these things that have happened even before 2022, so that we can now move forward together as a country with all facts and everything has been had and resolved. And we can deal with the unresolved matters that have not been conclusively investigated. Whether we start with Musanze, we come to Jakujuma, we come to Kenyanews, we come to Rivayala and everything else. Let these things be investigated by an open public inquest, so that this is so that when we explain and face
the public on these issues, because some of these issues are raised and we keep this merry-go-round, where we are always telling stories only when they are we cannot have government by blocking. Let's focus on the issues that we need to deal with. Let us address the lives of our people, and this issue should be investigated. When this matter happened on the 25th of June last year, we ought to have had an open public inquest into this. It will have given the Gen Z an opportunity to express themselves. We should have answered the question that time, how did we get here? Parliament is 2 kilometers from State House. For the first time since 1962, Parliament was overrun. What happened? How did we get here? Who knew what? And why didn't we prevent it? Why were we so insensitive to the point that citizens had to get to that particular point and things had to go south in the manner in which they did? So, finally, we have swept too much under the carpet. It's now time to lift that carpet and be truthful in the way in which we deal with the country. Thank you.
While Matiang'i hasn't officially declared his candidacy, his tone actually suggests that he is actually ready. And it has shifted, and he's throwing now direct digs at Ruto's leadership and Kenya Kwanza, claiming that Kenya is actually headed in the wrong direction. Well, some analysts have actually said that Matiang'i is testing the waters and trying to see where he can actually rely on before he starts doing his campaign. So at the moment, he's actually crafting his campaign machine quietly. And we know, even in his recent interview on Citizen, this is actually what he had to say.
Of course, I am now working with my colleagues in the opposition, generally, and having conversations with several leaders in the country, and engaging with Kenyans from various walks of life on the future of our country, with the intention of seeing what we can do to fix some of the challenges we are facing in the country and how best we could take our country to the next level. As you may have noticed, and I think I've expressed myself elsewhere before, Kenya does not need an all-knowing savior or ruler for that particular matter. The country needs a hard-working, honest, consensus builder or leader to mobilize the country and create a level of trust in the people of Kenya to invest their energy and their focus in moving a country to the next level. And I would like to make that contribution with my colleagues in the opposition and all Kenyans of goodwill.
From all this, one thing is clear, that Matiang'i's return is strategic, and the Kenya Kwanza camp is actually watching closely, even though lots of them have been, kind of bashing Matiang'i and the opposition, saying that they don't have anything to offer. But we know very well, even the sources from the government suggest that there is a growing unease about Matiang'i's ability to really rally behind the civil service, behind the youth, behind the disillusioned voters, because many Kenyans haven't still made up their mind in terms of who they're going to vote, and Ruto is actually a worried man if he's going to get a second term, that is. So they might criticize Matiang'i, but deep down they know very well they're losing the ground. Kenyans, what do you think? Matiang'i the sixth? Or what is going to happen? Because I'm really excited about Matiang'i's presence, because we know he's a go-getter and he's a doer. But is Matiang'i the real threat to Ruto in 2027? Or is this just a political shadow boxing? I'd really love to know your thoughts in the comment section. And please, this brings us to the end of this video. If you found this video insightful, please don't forget to hit on that subscribe button and that notification bar, so that anytime I do a video, you are able to be notified in time. Anyway, this brings us to the end of We Kenyans. Kenyans are speaking, and Kenya is going to be a great country. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Kenya does not need an all-knowing savior or ruler for that particular matter. The country needs a hard-working, honest, consensus builder or leader to mobilize the country and create a level of trust in the people of Kenya to invest their energy and their focus in moving a country to the next level. And I would like to make that contribution